guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today I came across some very interesting clips that I thought were interesting enough for you to be interested. Okay, so these clips were fascinating. Like you probably have heard this before, but it's something that keeps popping up and stirring my curiosity. So I'm today's years older when I found out that black Americans were commonly referred to as Indians long before they were called black people. So it's a topic that really gets the attention it deserves, and today we are going to take a closer look at this, at least the scratch of it. Okay, I know this goes deeper than we are going to see in these clips. Yeah, so make sure you leave your thoughts in the comment section down below, and remember, we are only on this channel for educational purposes, no judging. Okay, yeah, so let's watch this.
Y'all, I was researching my maternal grandmother's Creole line and I came across an interesting document. Let me know what you think. This is Winston Polk. Can you guys guess what race Winston Polk was? Just take a quick guess. What'd y'all guess? If you guessed Native American, you guessed right. But here's where it gets a little weird. Because Winston didn't take his ass to Oklahoma, they wrote him down as black. So the 23rd President of the United States, Benjamin Harrison, signed this land grant for Winston Polk. This is my DNA relative's second great grandfather. But because he didn't go to Oklahoma and just stayed in Mississippi, Alabama area, they wrote him down as black. Here's the actual document if anyone's curious, and you can see his name right there, Winston Polk. So this is the phenomenon that a lot of people are getting ridiculed for on this app, the reclassification of races. A lot of Native Americans were classified as black, not because they were African, but because they weren't white. Here's Winston Polk's wife, if anyone's interested.
Right.
My mother was a Shinnecock.
Yes.
Her grandmother was a Shinnecock. And my father was Umberton.
Okay. So the both of you were born on the reservation?
No.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Good.
we have interest in it, but like I said, this younger generation have they don't learn nothing about their heritage and nothing like that, you know?
To such a fantastic tribal setting here.
I'm very honored.
Well, you know,
Good.
we have interest in it, but like I said, this younger generation have they don't learn nothing about their heritage and nothing like that, you know?
Well, that's
And this reservation has a lot of history to it, believe it or not.
Right.
Like the church over there, that church is 400 years old, the old church here.
That's the
Thomas
church.
Jefferson was here.
Right. Right, in the 1700s, I think he came, or 1800s.
1800s.
Right, 1800s he came to learn
Right.
your language.
Well, he was touring the United States, and that's one of the first places he stopped to find out about the Indians, you know.
What was this house?
This house was in Camp.
Now, War Chief Howell, if someone looked at you right now, they would say that you were African American, would they not? Now, your grandfather, though, was supposed to have been, according to records.
Well, he was.
Oh, he was the last. Well, no, but according to, he wasn't the last
Right,
of
exactly,
the Nottoway, of the Cherahaka Nottoway tribe, though. Tell us about him.
Well, my grandfather, he passed away in 1960, and I was born in 1947, and he married. It was a black woman, and they had one child, which was my mother. But I had a chance to meet him, and because I was a young fellow when he passed away, and he was kind of a quiet man. He didn't hardly say anything. And now it's coming clear as why he was so quiet, because what happened to his people. And
Did he talk to you about your heritage?
no, I used to ask my mother. I said, "Why is my grandfather so quiet?" He never had much to say, and it's coming pretty clear to me as why he was so quiet.
Because at that time, they did not talk about being Indians because you could be jailed, correct?
Right.
Exactly. There was a lot of bad things that could have happened to you if you were native and if you were caught off the reservation. In some cases, you could be shot on sight. Okay, but getting back to William Lamb, who Paramore and Floyd Painter, Paramore wrote the history of Southampton County, said was the last Cherokee Nottoway riding a bicycle in Cortland. Again, we know that was not true because William
That's his
Lamb
grandson.
Howell, who was my war chief, is his grandson. But that's typical of what happened to first Americans in the Commonwealth. How things were done to actually change, not only to change one's race, but to change one's ethnicity, to take away their traditions, to take away their cultures, etc. And I'd like to go back to the 1808 Cherokee Nottoway Indian census to my fifth foster great grandmother, who was Queen Edith Turner. Her name was really Wane Runsira, but the whites called her Turner. And the names, the colonial names, were given to us the same basically as the slave mentality.
slaves were, yeah.
If your mother was a slave and living on a reservation, that means your child was a slave and that you took on the name of the master. So what had happened with Native people, we didn't have colonial names. We had Native names. My fourth great-grandmother's name was Carol Hoot. That was her native name. But when they did the census, they pinned her as being Mary Polly Whitson, who married Pearson's Turner and became Mary Turner and went over to Artistown in 1825, along with the Bozeman, the Browns, the Artists, the Boones, and the Whitsons, and just stayed there until the early 1990s.
So if you look at the records, then you would think that there would be no Indians in Southampton County, of Cherokee Nottoway Indians, but we know that there are. So when did this shift change for people to start researching and accepting their native heritage?
Well, I give you an example of my family. My grandfather had 18 kids, okay? And he always shared with us our native heritage. His wife was Ophelia Rogers. That was my father's mother. She was the granddaughter of Alex Rogers, that is listed on the 1808 Cherokee Nottoway Indian census, who was tried for murder in 1820 and found guilty of second-degree murder. Did 12 years of hard labor, got out, and went into Nansemond County, married, and went over to Hertford County. But at that time, Native people could not testify for each other. I have the whole court case. It was really self-defense. Now, Native people, my people, were classified as mulatto. Okay. Now that was a term that not necessarily mean half white, half black, or half Indian, half white, or half Indian, half black. It was a term that the colonials created back in the early 1700s, and in reality, in many cases, it means purebred Native American. And that term mulatto, I mean, the first one was 1824, the first Racial Integrity Act, 1824, and then 1924 was the last one in Virginia that was brought about during the plecurism. So when you're doing genealogical searches, unless you can talk to your ancestors, your parents, your grandmothers, great-grandmothers, and I tell people when I do presentations, talk to your people and ask, from whence came I?
There are land papers before slavery in my people's name here. How was it? Because when the Europeans came here, what Roderick is talking about, we gave a lot of people some spots to settle, but they took those spots and wanted bigger spots. My people right now, the Shatta, they took on the end from our people, I'm talking about the end of the big take, 25 million acres of land by removing my people from here to Oklahoma. That was the last of their land, 25 million acres of land. And it was people that looked like me. What Andrew Jackson did was he appointed some Europeans. I want you to know how I'm here, brother. My grandfathers were generational of chiefs. I come from a line of chiefs. I'm from a royal family of chiefs. What the Europeans did was took my people, took the women and the children, and some European that Andrew Jackson was friends with, appointed them as chiefs, left the original chiefs back here, took the white chief that he appointed, which into Oklahoma is, as you know today, as Indian Territory. Indian Territory was set up by mixed breeds, okay?
Yeah.
The people that signed the treaty was either non-native or mixed breed.
You don't know what you're talking about, and you're talking about two completely different time periods. You said there were American Indian tribes living in Americas before Haitians fled. I guess it's important to not give the impression of erasing their identity, American Indian identity, with Haitians. Sis, don't call me sis. American Indian identity begins with Christopher Columbus discovering America and Haiti and naming that land the Indies, and those people the Indios. That began in Haiti and the Caribbean islands, which included Florida. It began in Haiti, included the Caribbean islands, included Florida, the mainland of Mexico, and up the River Platte, which would become the Louisiana Territory. That's in 1493. They claimed the Indies. Those are American Indians. Okay? So by 1682, you know that American Indians were already over there when we were enslaved by the law the baby follows the belly. Haiti wasn't even a thing until 1801. American Indian people who gained their indigenous freedom. You don't have American Indian identity without Haiti. The rest of us, as American Indians, I had to find through law. And I find us being freed from slavery in 1865. We make up 3/4. American Indian identity makes up 3/4 of the people freed in 1865 after the Civil War. So when you say it's important to not give the impression of erasing American Indian identity with Haitians, American Indian identity begins with Haiti. They just have their indigenous name. American Indian identity includes the Indies of Florida, Haiti, the Caribbean islands, the River Plate, Mexico, and that's it. But that's everything that will go on to become the United States. So I'm not erasing the American Indian identity. I'm the one who found us. But it starts and begins with Haiti. It's the same people. You can't get around it.
It's kind of scary, but Pocahontas was not black. She was a part of the Powhatan people.
This is awkward. You're talking to one of her descendants right here, and you are correct in saying this. We're not black, honey. We're indigenous Americans. We're American. So I think a lot of people want to say black, but black is a status of a legal terminology. It's not who we are. And if you want to know, back in the day, there are whole articles that talk about American Indians as being, would you call black? Look at the Cleveland Indians. Look at the old mascot, the Indian. You know what? We've come into a point in 2025 that old narrative is just shook all the way out, honey. That's been my family oral tradition for a long time. John Smith said that they look so black and how strong they were. Disney really done messed a whole bunch of people up because they just portrayed her as a white woman for the longest time. But we have allodial titles and proof to our tethering of this land. Yeah.
Okay, and that brings us to the end of this video. Before I say anything else, there's a possibility that I'm going to be pronouncing some tribal names wrongly. Please bear with me. Okay, so before we wrap this up completely, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered, because this is a part of history that a lot of people still don't talk about openly. So we've touched on the fact that before the term Indian was widely used, Black Americans, especially the indigenous population of this land, were referred to by other names depending on the tribe, region, and period in history, according to various sources and historical records. Though these are often debated, many of these groups were called by the names of their specific nations and tribes. These names included, but were not limited to, the Yamasee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Greek or Muskogee, the Katawa, and the Seminole. Yeah. Please pardon me. So what's more important to note here is that not all of these tribes fit into the stereotypical image of Native Americans that's been shaped by popular culture. In fact, many early European explorers and settlers wrote about dark-skinned indigenous people they encountered, people who didn't fit the modern idea of the feather-wearing, teepee-dwelling Plains Indians. Some of these tribes had dark complexions, tightly curled hair, and features that would today be associated with African heritage. This is part of why there's such ongoing debate about the true origins and clarifications of the so-called Black Indians of America. Moving further into this history, especially when looking at the southern eastern region of what is now the United States, the Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Louisiana, we find that some of these indigenous tribes, particularly those who resisted European colonization, were taught in warfare, were captured and sold into slavery. And here's something that might surprise you. They weren't always sold into local servitude or to plantations in the southern colonies. Many were shipped out of the mainland entirely, sort of to Caribbean islands like Jamaica, Barbados, and the Bahamas. This lesser-known slave trade route meant that native people from the southeastern United States ended up thousands of miles away. Their identities forever altered by the brutal transatlantic system that treated them as mere property. These are enslaved Native Americans, some of whom may have already had African ancestry through intermarriage, were absorbed into the larger African slave populations in those regions, adding another complex layer to the African diaspora we talk about today. But it didn't stop in the Caribbean. Historical evidence also points to enslaved Native Americans, many of whom were classified as Negro or colored simply because of their skin color, being sent to Europe, especially Spain, and Portugal. A smaller but significant number were transported to South America, particularly Brazil, which received the largest number of African slaves in the Western Hemisphere, but also absorbed indigenous peoples from other regions. Even here in the mainland, as in USA, things were complicated. In some cases, black Indians were legally classified as Negro by colonial governments, stripping them of their tribal affiliations and land rights. This erasure is part of why so many African Americans today may have native ancestry. And of course, all this information comes with a big disclaimer. While there are books, journals, and research papers that discuss these topics, some based on first-hand accounts, others on modern reinterpretations, this history is controversial. Not everyone agrees on these interpretations, and the truth may be more complicated than any source can capture. And that's why I want to be completely transparent with you. This video, like many others exploring hidden or alternative histories, is not based on universally accepted facts. It's based on information that is available online in books and in historical records that are often disputed or debated by scholars. I am not claiming this as the absolute truth, and you definitely shouldn't take my word as the final say. So please don't come for me in the comments saying I'm spreading misinformation. That's not what this is about. We are here to argue, push, or a false narrative. We're here to learn, question, and explore pieces of history that have been overlooked, forgotten, or deliberately hidden. And honestly, that's why I love making videos like this, because it gives us such a chance to open the floor to reveal conversations. So if you know more about this history, if you have family stories, tribal knowledge, or even academic research that you think can shed more light on these topics, I welcome you to share it in the comment section down below. Let's use this space to educate one another respectfully and thoughtfully, as we try to place together a past that's far more complex than the textbooks ever let on. At the end of the day, none of us has the full picture, but every story, every comment, every perspective helps fill in the blanks. And who knows, maybe you share something that changes how we all understand this part of history. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching and staying with me till the end. I appreciate you for being open-minded and curious enough to dig deeper into these topics, even when they are messy or controversial. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any future uploads. I've got plenty interesting and thought-provoking content coming your way. For now, that's it for me. I'll see you in my next video. Stay peaceful.